After discovering that her husband had cheated on her with his ex and even demanded half of everything in the divorce, she decides to disappear without warning. No trace, no explanation. Her departure leaves a void and a mystery. I sat cross-legged on the plush carpet of our living room, the soft afternoon sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains and casting a warm golden hue across the room. My hands trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages of our photo album, each picture capturing a moment of love and happiness between Daniel and me, memories that now felt like relics of a distant past. There we were, smiling at each other on our wedding day, the ocean waves crashing in the background, our eyes bright with joy and possibility. In another image, we were hiking in the mountains, laughing as I stumbled into a patch of wildflowers, carefree and alive. But as I gazed at those captured moments, a stark coldness settled in my chest, suffocating the warmth they once held. The vivid colors of our happiness now seemed like a cruel joke in the wake of his betrayal. I couldn't erase the image of Daniel's face when I confronted him about his affair with Clara, his ex-girlfriend. It was just a mistake, Marcella, he had said, his voice a mix of desperation and guilt. Those hollow words echoed in my mind, a dull throb mirroring the ache in my heart. With sudden force, I closed the album, the snap of its cover breaking the silence in the room. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of it all. How could Daniel do this to me? After everything we had built together, how could he throw it away for a fleeting moment of weakness? I leaned back against the couch, shutting my eyes tightly, willing the tears to stay at bay. Just then, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. Lisa's name flashed on the screen. My heart skipped, grateful for the lifeline she always seemed to offer, a way to lighten the darkness, even if just for a moment. "Hey, Marcella, are you okay?" Lisa's voice was warm, laced with concern, as I answered. I hesitated, the urge to spill everything rising in my chest, but I swallowed hard, forcing a smile she couldn't see. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just going through some old photos," I replied, trying to keep my tone light, as though reminiscing over happy memories. "Are you sure? You sound off," she pressed, and I could almost hear her frown on the other end of the line. "I'm just a little tired, that's all." "You know how it is," I said, my voice barely masking the turmoil underneath. "Marcella, you can't keep brushing this off. Talk to me. What's really going on?" Her tone turned insistent, and I felt the walls I had built around myself beginning to crack. I sighed, knowing I couldn't hold back forever. "It's just Daniel," I finally admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "Things have been complicated." "Complicated how?" Lisa's voice softened, encouraging me to continue. I took a deep breath, grappling with the decision to share the truth. "He cheated on me. With Clara," I said, the words spilling out like water from a broken dam. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube can understand and deliver more of our content to you. A heavy silence hung between us before Lisa finally spoke. "Oh, Marcella, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How are you holding up?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "It feels like a dream, a nightmare, and none of it makes sense. One moment, we were happy, and the next, everything's just falling apart. I can't imagine how that feels." "Do you want me to come over?" she offered, her voice filled with warmth and understanding. "No, I think I need some time alone," I replied, trying to sound stronger than I felt. "I'll be okay. I promise." "All right, but don't shut me out. I'm here for you. Okay?" "I know. Thank you, Lisa," I said, forcing a smile I hoped reached my voice. We talked a bit more, but I couldn't shake the fragility inside me. Her concern lingered even after we hung up, amplifying the weight of loneliness that pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. As night fell, shadows stretched across the room, and I found myself staring out the window, lost in thought. The city skyline glittered in the distance, a stark contrast to the chaos inside me. I thought about Daniel, the life we had built together, and how quickly it had crumbled. Finally, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront him again, to understand how he could betray me so completely. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I walked to our bedroom, finding him sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. "Marcella," he said, looking up as I entered. There was a weariness in his eyes I hadn't seen before, stirring a mix of confusion, regret, and anger within me. "Daniel, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside. "I know," he replied, running a hand through his hair. "I'm so sorry, Marcella. It was a mistake, and I regret it every single day." "A mistake?" I repeated, incredulous. "You call it a mistake, but it was a choice, Daniel. You chose to betray me." I wasn't thinking clearly. "It meant nothing," he insisted, but the words sounded hollow. "Then why do you want half of everything in the divorce?" I challenged, my voice rising as anger bubbled to the surface. He looked startled, his expression shifting from regret to defensiveness. "Because it's only fair. We built this life together." My heart pounded, the familiar sensation of being trapped creeping in. "So this is your solution? Demanding half of what we shared? Do you even realize what you've done?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," he shouted, his frustration spilling over. "I was weak, and I'm sorry, but I still want to be fair." "Fair?" I shook my head in disbelief, everything spiraling out of control. "You don't get to demand fairness after shattering my heart, Daniel. You have no idea what this feels like." He stood up, pacing, and I saw the guilt and anger battling inside him. "I know I messed up, but I can't lose everything, Marcella. I can't." I stepped back, overwhelmed by his desperation. "You already lost me the moment you decided to betray our vows. I'm done, Daniel. This isn't just about assets. It's about trust, love, everything we built." As I spoke, a wave of clarity washed over me. A primal instinct to escape surged within, to run from the pain and betrayal that had become my reality. I turned away, my heart racing with fear and determination. I needed to get out, to disappear. "Where are you going?" he called after me, but I didn't respond. I needed freedom, even if just for a little while. The weight of our life together felt unbearable, and I needed to find a way to lighten it, even if that meant leaving everything behind. In that moment, the decision was made. I would no longer be defined by his betrayal or the life we had shared. I would reclaim my identity, my freedom, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I would choose myself. The first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over my bedroom. I woke with my heart racing, the events of the previous night vivid in my mind. The confrontation with Daniel echoed in my ears, and the weight of his betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. Sitting up in bed, I felt my mind racing, spiraling out of control. I knew I needed to make a decision, and I needed to make it quickly. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and planted my feet on the cool wooden floor. The house was eerily quiet, amplifying the chaos inside my head. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was still early, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep anymore. I walked to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, hoping to wash away the remnants of pain. Staring into the mirror, I barely recognized the woman gazing back at me. Lost, shattered, fragmented by the betrayal of the man I had once loved deeply. Back in the bedroom, the lingering scent of Daniel's cologne made my stomach churn. I opened the closet, scanning through clothes that now felt foreign, remnants of a life I no longer wanted. Grabbing a small duffel bag, I started filling it with essentials. A couple of changes of clothes, my favorite sweater, and the worn journal where I had poured out my thoughts over the years. Each item felt like a lifeline, a connection to the woman I used to be, before betrayal had tainted everything. Pausing, I stared at the empty spaces where Daniel's belongings had been, feeling a pang of regret that was quickly overshadowed by fierce determination. I couldn't stay here, not in this house where every corner held memories of love and laughter now tinged with sorrow. I picked up my phone, typing a brief message to Daniel. Finding the right words was hard, but eventually, I settled on something simple. "I need to find myself." I left the note on the kitchen table, hoping he would understand, though I knew he might never fully grasp the depth of my pain. With my bag slung over my shoulder, I stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The world felt both familiar and foreign. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm within. As I got into my car, the weight of my decision pressed down on me, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. I turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life. A sound that felt like a promise of freedom. I drove aimlessly at first, my mind flooded with memories of what I was leaving behind. Images of Daniel's laughter, his warm embrace, the dreams we had built together, flashed through my mind, only to be overshadowed by the reality of his betrayal. I needed to escape, to find a place where I could breathe and rediscover who I was without him. The sun rose higher as I cruised along winding roads, its light illuminating the path ahead. I decided to head toward the coast, a place that had always brought me solace. The salty breeze and the sound of waves crashing had a way of soothing my soul, and I longed for that comfort. The thought of the ocean filled me with a sense of purpose, and I pressed down on the accelerator, eager to leave the hurt behind. The drive felt both liberating and terrifying. Adrenaline coursed through me as the landscape transformed from urban sprawl to serene coastal views. Turning up the radio, I let the music drown out my thoughts, singing along with a small smile as I remembered the countless road trips Daniel and I had shared. But the smile faded, replaced by a deep ache in my heart. I was alone now, and that reality was beginning to sink in. As I neared the coast, the scent of the ocean filled the air, and I heard the distant cry of seagulls. Parking near the beach, I stepped out to feel the sand under my feet, a sensation I had missed. The warmth of the sun, the gentle breeze brushing my face. I took a deep breath, savoring the salty air, letting the beauty around me seep in. I walked along the shore, waves lapping at my feet as tears began to fall freely. I cried for the love I had lost, the trust shattered, and the future I had envisioned that was now just a distant dream. Fear and liberation swirled within me. I was terrified of the unknown ahead, but a sense of empowerment grew within me. I was reclaiming my life, even if it meant stepping into uncertainty. After wandering for a while, I found a small cafe tucked away on the beach. The sign above the door read Seaside Brews, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, inviting me in. The cafe was quaint and cozy, with a view of the ocean. I approached the counter, greeted by the barista's warm smile. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with kindness. "I'll have a coffee, please," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. As I waited for my drink, I took in the cozy atmosphere, watching locals chatting and laughing, their camaraderie a stark contrast to my solitude. I took my coffee and found a seat by the window, watching the waves crash against the shore. The beauty of the scene was breathtaking, but my heart felt heavy with memories of my recent past. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. It was a message from Lisa. "Hey, I'm worried about you. Call me when you can." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen. Should I tell her about what had happened? Should I share my plan to disappear for a while? I knew she'd be concerned, but I needed this time. Time to heal, to gather myself. Leaving the message unanswered, I refocused on the ocean, letting the sound of the waves drown out the noise of my thoughts. I needed to be here, to find clarity. As I took another sip, I noticed a woman sitting at the next table. She was engrossed in her book, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, and there was a warmth about her, an aura of strength that felt comforting. After a moment, she looked up and caught my eye, offering a friendly smile. "Nice day, isn't it?" she said, her voice smooth and inviting. I nodded, feeling an unexpected connection. "It really is. I needed a change of scenery." "Me too," she replied, closing her book. "I'm Sarah. I work at the diner down the street. The beach is my escape." "Marcella," I introduced myself, grateful for the distraction. I'm trying to figure things out." Sarah tilted her head slightly, her expression one of understanding. "I get that. Sometimes we just need to step away from everything. Life can be overwhelming." "Yes, it can," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders as I spoke. "I just found out my husband was cheating on me." Her eyes widened with empathy. "I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly hard." "It is," I admitted, feeling vulnerable, but strangely relieved to share my pain with a stranger. I just felt like I had to get away. "Good for you," she said, her voice steady. "You deserve to take care of yourself. Sometimes, it's the only way to heal." We talked for a while, sharing stories and laughter. For the first time since the confrontation with Daniel, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could find my way back to myself. Maybe this journey wasn't just about escaping but discovering who I was without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. Little did I know, as I forged this new connection, that Daniel was waking up to an empty house, the words on my note cutting deeper than I could have imagined. But for now, I was free, and that was enough. The salty ocean breeze welcomed me as I pulled into the quaint seaside town, my heart a chaotic blend of fear and excitement. It felt as if the waves were whispering promises of freedom, urging me to step away from the life I once knew. I parked in front of a small, weathered motel with a flickering neon sign that read vacancy. The place looked almost forgotten, but that was exactly what I needed. A blank canvas to paint a new story, far from the shadows of betrayal. As I entered the motel office, the scent of salt and coffee mingled in the air. The receptionist, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, handed me a set of keys. I felt the weight of my past lifting slightly as I made my way to a modest room at the back. The door creaked open to reveal a humble space, but it felt like a sanctuary. I tossed my bag onto the bed and sank beside it, overwhelmed by a rush of emotions. "Is this really it?" I whispered to myself, staring at the faded wallpaper and the small window overlooking the beach. The distant sound of waves crashing resonated with the turmoil inside me. I wanted to feel free, to embrace this new beginning, yet Daniel's face haunted me, lingering in the corners of my mind. "Why did you do this, Daniel?" I murmured, my voice barely audible. The thought of his betrayal felt like a heavy anchor pulling me down, but I couldn't afford to drown in sorrow. I had to find a way to breathe again. Later that evening, I decided to take a walk along the beach. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the water. Each step felt like a farewell to my past and a tentative hello to what lay ahead. I closed my eyes, letting the ocean breeze kiss my skin, hoping it would wash away the memories clinging to me like a second skin. "Hey there!" A cheerful voice broke through my reverie. I turned to see a young woman with bright red hair and a welcoming smile, holding a tray of drinks on her way to a group of beachgoers. "Hi," I replied, my voice a bit shaky. "Just taking a walk." "Good idea. The sunsets here are magical," she said, gesturing to the horizon painted in hues of orange and pink. "I'm Sarah, by the way. I work at the diner down the road. You should come by for breakfast tomorrow." "Marcella," I introduced myself, feeling a warmth spread through me at her friendliness. "I just got here, trying to find something." "Finding yourself?" she asked, a knowing look in her eyes. "A lot of us come here to do just that. The sea has a way of helping us heal." I nodded, appreciating her insight. "Yeah, something like that." "Want to join me for a drink?" she offered, tilting her head toward a nearby beach bonfire where laughter and music drifted on the breeze. I hesitated, but her openness drew me in. "Sure, why not?" As we made our way to the fire, I felt the tension in my shoulders ease. Sarah introduced me to her friends, who welcomed me with open arms. They were a lively bunch, sharing stories and laughter, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I found myself smiling. "Tell us your story, Marcella," one of the guys, a tall man with a carefree demeanor, said as he handed me a drink. I hesitated, the weight of my truth heavy on my tongue, but something in me wanted to share, to let go of the burden. "I just left a difficult situation," I began, my voice trembling. "My husband cheated on me, and I needed to escape." The group fell silent, their faces shifting to expressions of empathy. "I'm sorry to hear that," Sarah said softly, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You deserve better." As the night wore on, I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for years. I shared pieces of my life, dreams I once had, and the fears that had kept me chained. They listened, offering encouragement and understanding, and for the first time since discovering Daniel's betrayal, I felt a flicker of hope. The following days unfolded like a dream. I spent my mornings at the diner, savoring Sarah's homemade pancakes and sharing laughter with the locals. I felt the sun on my skin, the laughter in my heart, and the weight of my past slowly lifting. Each moment was a step toward reclaiming my identity, and I began to embrace the uncertainty of this new chapter. "Marcella, you should join us for karaoke tonight," Sarah exclaimed one afternoon, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I don't know." I hesitated, feeling a wave of anxiety at the thought of being in the spotlight. "Come on, it'll be fun," she insisted. "Let the music heal you." Taking a deep breath, I decided to go for it. That night, the diner transformed into a lively gathering place, filled with laughter and clinking glasses. When my turn came, I stood on the small stage, heart racing. As the first notes of a familiar song played, I closed my eyes and let the music carry me. I sang with all my heart, releasing the pain and longing bottled up inside. The crowd cheered, and I felt a cathartic release wash over me like the tide. Meanwhile, miles away in the city, Daniel grappled with the consequences of his actions. The morning after I left, he woke up to an empty bed, the silence echoing through the house like a haunting melody. Panic surged through him as he read my note, the simple words cutting deeper than he could have imagined. "I need to find myself." The words hit Daniel like a crashing wave, the realization sweeping over him with crushing force. He had taken everything for granted, and now he was left with nothing but regret. "Marcella!" he shouted into the empty air, his voice thick with desperation. Each corner of the house seemed to mock him, a constant reminder of what he had lost. He paced the floors, his mind racing, revisiting memories of shared laughter and love that now haunted him. The weight of his betrayal loomed like a storm cloud, and for the first time, he truly understood the emptiness his choices had wrought. Determined to find me, he picked up the phone and called a private investigator, his voice trembling with urgency. "I need you to help me find my wife. She's gone." As the investigator jotted down the details, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps if he could find me, he could make amends, salvage what was left of our marriage. But deep down, he knew things would never be the same. I had stepped away from the life we had shared, and with each passing moment, the distance between us grew wider. Meanwhile, back in the coastal town, I continued to immerse myself in my new life, finding solace in the community that had welcomed me with open arms. Sarah had become a dear friend, and the locals embraced me as one of their own. I began to see myself as more than just the pain of my past. I was a woman on the brink of rediscovery, ready to forge a new path. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shades of violet across the sky, I stood on the beach, toes buried in the cool sand. I took a deep breath, letting the salty air fill my lungs. The rhythmic crash of the waves reminded me that life moves forward, regardless of the storms we endure. "Marcella," Sarah called out, pulling me from my thoughts. "Come join us for a bonfire. We're celebrating the end of summer." A smile spread across my face. "I'd love to." As I walked back to the group, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of Daniel's betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. Instead, I was carving out a new identity, one entirely my own. In that moment, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next, unafraid, unapologetically myself. As the last light faded, casting a golden glow across the beach, I sat on the warm sand, my toes dug into the grains. The waves crashed softly against the shore, a soothing melody that, while beautiful, reminded me of everything I had left behind. Daniel, our life together, the dreams we had woven, now washed away like footprints in the tide. While I found a sense of freedom in the daylight hours of this small coastal town, the nights were different. When darkness fell, so did the lightness I carried. Shadows crept into my mind, bringing with them memories of Daniel and the life we had built. I often woke in the dead of night, my heart racing, drenched in sweat, haunted by dreams of our past. In those dreams, Daniel would reach out, his face etched with regret and pleading for forgiveness, but I always woke before I could respond. The nights became my battleground, each one a reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my world. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling of my modest motel room, the silence amplifying my thoughts. How could he do this to me? I whispered into the darkness. How could he destroy everything we built? I tried to shake off those thoughts, to bury them beneath the sound of waves crashing outside my window. But they clung to me, like barnacles stubbornly attached to a ship's hull. I could almost feel Daniel's presence beside me, and I clenched my fists, fighting against the tide of emotions threatening to pull me under. One evening, Sarah invited me to a local gathering. "It'll be fun, Marcella. You need to get out and meet people," she insisted, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. I hesitated, my heart pounding. "I don't know, Sarah. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Come on, just one night. You might even enjoy yourself," she urged, nudging me gently. After a moment of contemplation, I nodded, tempted by the thought of escaping my motel room, even if just for a few hours. "Okay, let's do it." As we entered the small community center, I was greeted by the sounds of laughter and music, the air filled with the scent of fresh popcorn and something sweet. A flutter of anxiety stirred in my stomach, but Sarah's excitement was infectious. She took my hand and led me into the crowd. The gathering was a mix of familiar locals and new faces. I felt out of place at first, the weight of my past still heavy, but as the evening wore on, I found myself laughing at Sarah's jokes and engaging in conversations with others. It was during one of these conversations that I met Jake. He sat at a table with a few friends, a slight smile on his face as he listened to them talk. Our eyes met, and he smiled at me, a warmth radiating from him that felt inviting. "Hey there, I'm Jake," he said, extending his hand. "Marcella," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, and for a brief moment, I felt a spark of connection. We began to talk, and as the conversation flowed, I learned that Jake, too, carried his own story of heartbreak. He had recently gone through a painful breakup, and we bonded over our shared experiences of betrayal and loss. "I thought I knew her," Jake said, his voice low, "but it turns out she was seeing someone else the whole time. It's like I was living in a dream and suddenly woke up to find it all gone." "I know exactly what you mean," I admitted, my heart aching at the familiarity of his words. "I found out my husband was cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend. It's like the ground was ripped out from under me." His eyes softened with understanding, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. "Maybe we can help each other heal," he suggested, a hint of a smile returning to his face. As the night wore on, sharing our stories and laughter, the camaraderie of the gathering began to wash away some of my pain. For the first time since arriving in this town, I felt a sense of belonging, a connection that had been missing in my life. But as I looked into Jake's eyes, I felt a pang of guilt. Was I ready to move on? Could I allow myself to feel this way after everything Daniel had done? As the party wound down, Sarah pulled me aside. "You were amazing tonight. I knew you needed this," she said, her eyes gleaming with pride. "Thanks, Sarah. I actually had fun," I replied, my heart feeling lighter than it had in days. "Jake seems nice. You two hit it off, huh?" she teased, winking at me. I felt my cheeks flush, caught off guard by the unexpected feeling of hope and warmth in this small, seaside town. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was beginning to heal. "Anything?" I repeated, a bitter edge to my voice. "Daniel, you had years to prove your love, to show me loyalty, but you threw it all away. Now, after I've picked up what's left of me and started moving on, you show up here, begging for a chance?" He stood there, visibly shaken, his eyes brimming with regret. "I didn't come here to make excuses. I came because I realized I can't live without you. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." I took a steadying breath, my heart pounding as I processed his words. "You're willing to do anything now, but it's too late, Daniel. When I needed you to be faithful, you weren't. You betrayed my trust, and that's not something you can just fix with an apology." A silence settled between us, thick and suffocating, broken only by the soft murmurs of the cafe around us. I glanced at Jake, who had been sitting quietly by my side, his hand still resting on my arm, offering silent support. He met my gaze, his eyes filled with understanding, and for a moment, I felt grounded. "Marcella," Daniel pleaded, his voice cracking. "I know I've made mistakes, and I know I hurt you in ways I can never fully make up for. But please, give us a chance to rebuild." I shook my head, feeling the last fragments of sympathy dissolve. "Rebuild? Daniel, there's nothing left to rebuild. You shattered everything we had, and I've spent every day since trying to pick up the pieces. Coming here like this, expecting me to just forgive and forget? It's unfair." The desperation in his face shifted to anger. "So, that's it? You've moved on? Found someone new, and now I'm just part of your past?" "This isn't about anyone else," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "This is about me. I deserve peace, and I won't find it by clinging to someone who didn't value me when it mattered." Daniel looked away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. I felt a wave of conflicting emotions, pity, sadness, relief, but I knew this was the closure I needed. Facing him, standing my ground, was the final step in reclaiming my life. As he turned to leave, he looked back at me, his face etched with regret. "I'm sorry, Marcella. I truly am. I hope you find happiness, even if it's without me." Watching him walk away, I felt a profound sense of release. For so long, I had carried the weight of his betrayal, but now I was free. Jake reached for my hand, his warmth grounding me once more. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. I nodded, exhaling deeply. "I think I am." "Finally." He smiled, a softness in his eyes that filled me with a quiet reassurance. "Let's get out of here." Together, we stepped out of the cafe, the sun now setting over the horizon. As we walked along the beach, I felt a newfound lightness, a hope that had been missing for so long. I was no longer haunted by the past, no longer bound to the pain Daniel had caused. I was free, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead on my terms. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. What do you think that looks like, Daniel? Do you think I just forget everything? The lies? The betrayal? You can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. "I know," he admitted, his shoulders slumping, "but I want to prove to you that I can change. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Enough?" I cut him off, my voice firm. "You can't fix this with promises. I've spent too long believing in your words, only for them to shatter into dust. I need to focus on myself now." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel his gaze on me, filled with regret and disbelief. Jake's grip on my arm tightened, a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. "Marcella," Daniel murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I love you. I've always loved you." The sincerity in his words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had loved him too, once, but love couldn't erase betrayal. "You loved me enough to cheat on me?" "Love isn't just a word, Daniel. It's a commitment. And you broke that." He took a step back, realization dawning. "I know I can't take back what I did, but I'm here now. I want to fight for us." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "You can't fight for something you've already lost. I'm not running anymore, but I won't be defined by your mistakes." With that, I turned to Jake, who looked at me with admiration and understanding. "Let's go," I said, my voice steady. As we walked out of the cafe, I could feel Daniel's gaze lingering, a heavy reminder of what I was leaving behind. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. I was done being a victim of his betrayal. I was reclaiming my life, one step at a time. As I stood there, heart pounding and fists clenched, a surge of empowerment washed over me. Daniel's face was a mixture of anger and desperation, and I finally felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself. I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze with steely resolve. "Do you even understand what you've done, Daniel?" My voice came out steady, though I was trembling inside. "You didn't just cheat on me. You shattered our life together. You took everything we built and burned it to the ground." He opened his mouth to respond, but the words froze on his lips. I saw the conflict in his eyes, a flicker of guilt he couldn't hide. "Marcella, No." I interrupted, my emotions bubbling up. Don't try to justify this. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I refuse to be your backup plan, your second choice. I need to reclaim my life and my happiness. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension. I watched his expression shift, the bravado fading. I never meant for it to go this far, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. It was a mistake, Marcella. I was stupid, and I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. I shot back, my heart aching at the sight of him so vulnerable. You think I'm just going to forgive you and forget all of this? You don't get to decide how I feel, Daniel. You've lost that right. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a fleeting moment, I almost felt pity for him. But then I remembered the pain he had caused me. The nights I spent crying, wondering what I did wrong. You need to face the consequences of your actions, I continued, my voice growing stronger. And I'm not going to let you manipulate me any longer. Just then, the door swung open, and Sarah walked in, her expression serious. Marcella, I overheard something that you need to know. Daniel and I both turned to her, confusion on our faces. What is it? I asked, my heart pounding again. I was just at the diner, and I overheard some customers talking. They were discussing Daniel's affair, but here's the twist. It wasn't just with his ex-girlfriend. He's been seeing someone else, too, someone he's kept hidden from you. Her words hit me like a freight train. What? Who? How do you know this? Sarah stepped closer, her voice low. I didn't catch the name, but they were talking about how he's been juggling both relationships, keeping you in the dark. He's been manipulating the situation, Marcella. You're not the only one he's betrayed. Rage surged through me, hot and fierce. I turned to Daniel, who was now pale and visibly shaken. Is this true? I demanded, my voice rising. You've been lying to me this whole time? I didn't mean for it to happen, he stammered, his voice shaky. It's complicated. Complicated? I echoed, incredulous. You're the one who made it complicated. You chose to betray me, to lie to me. Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? As I spoke, a wave of clarity swept over me. This wasn't just about Daniel's infidelity. It was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. I had spent too long being a shadow, a ghost in my own existence. I'm going to take legal action against you, I declared, the words coming out before I could second-guess myself. For emotional distress. You need to understand that your actions have consequences, and I won't let you walk away unscathed. Daniel's face fell, a mix of disbelief and fear overtaking him. You can't be serious, Marcella. This is insane. You're just acting out of anger. No, I replied, feeling a calm resolve settle over me. I'm acting out of self-preservation. I deserve respect, not to be treated as an option. And you need to learn that your choices have repercussions. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. This isn't a negotiation, Daniel. I'm done negotiating. I'm done with all of this. Turning away, I felt the weight of the moment settle in. This was it. I was no longer the woman who stood by silently while her husband betrayed her. I was reclaiming my narrative, my life. Marcella, please, he called after me, desperation lacing his voice. Don't do this. I'll change. I swear it. I paused at the door, glancing back. You had your chance, Daniel. You chose to hurt me, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. I won't be your safety net anymore. With that, I stepped outside, the salty breeze hitting my face like a cleansing wave. The weight of my decision lifted, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt light. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the coastal town. I took a deep breath, my heart racing, not with fear, but with the exhilaration of newfound freedom. I was reclaiming my life and my story. As I walked away from the confrontation, strength bubbled inside me. I wouldn't let Daniel's choices define me anymore. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it. I was ready to embrace the unknown, to carve out a new path for myself. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with each step I took away from him, I felt a surge of empowerment. This was my time, to heal, to rediscover the person I was, without the shadow of his betrayal clouding my life. As I moved forward, letting the pain slip into the past. A small smile began to bloom, fueled by the possibilities awaiting me. My heart was still raw, scarred by the journey I had endured, but I was ready to face the world on my own terms, no longer shackled by the ghosts of my past. This was my beginning, a life on my own, filled with hope, strength, and uncharted freedom. And we've reached the end of another story. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment telling us what you thought about it, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube understands that you liked it and recommends more videos to you.